This video is designed to help us understand how to use the Gospel Library app. For purposes of these videos, we'll be demonstrating them on an iPhone. However, Android phones have the same features. There are two primary applications provided by the church for members: the Tools application and the Library application. The Tools application has data specific to each ward and stake, including membership data, calendars, and organizations. It also includes ministering assignments. If you're wondering who your assigned ministering elders or sisters are, that information is found in the Tools application. But for purposes of these training videos, we're going to focus on the Gospel Library application. In a prior video, we've demonstrated how to install the Gospel Library application on your phone, so we won't be showing that in this video. To use the Gospel Library app, navigate to the place on your phone where the Library app is displayed, and then tap it to open it. When you first open the Gospel Library app, you're brought to this page where the various categories of content are found. As you can see, this content includes materials on Jesus Christ, the scriptures, general conference, the music of the church, including the hymns, and other important categories of information, including the handbooks, which includes the Handbook of Instructions. Let's review some of the features of navigation within the Gospel Library app. This is about how to move around within the application and find the material that you need. In subsequent videos, we'll talk about specific categories or areas of information within the Gospel app and how to use them. Along the bottom of each screen are 5 different icons appearing on the bottom edge. Let's talk about each one of these and how they can be used. On the left is a little gear picture, and that is the settings. Let's tap on the settings button. The settings area provides an opportunity for you to set some of the features to help you in your use of the Gospel app. You can read through these to set the app in a way that's helpful for you. But one of the most common features here, and one that's very useful, is the text size setting within the display area here. I'm going to tap on the text size option. It brings up an example from the scriptures, and along the top is a slider bar with a little circle. If I put my finger on that circle and move it to the left or to the right, you can see that the size of the text changes. I can make the text larger so that when I'm reading in the scriptures on my mobile device or a general conference talk, the text is easier to read. Find a text size that is useful and helpful for you. Now I'll hit the left button to return. After I've reviewed my settings and made any changes that were meaningful for me, I will tap the Done button in the top right corner. That is the settings icon. The next icon over is a square with a little arrow going up, and that is the Send option or feature. I'm going to tap that. When I do, a window pops up that allows me to send the material that I'm looking at either to friends or other contacts that I have, or to an application. I can copy the materials tapping on the copy option. I could copy a link for the information I'm looking at, and I could do a variety of other things depending on how my mobile device is configured. For now, I'm going to close this option by tapping on the X button in the top right corner. The next feature over is a magnifying glass, and that is the search feature. So I'm going to tap on the search icon, and it brings up this screen. The search feature searches through all of the material within the Gospel Library app. In this case, I've typed in the word baptism, and all of the references in the Gospel Library app appear on this screen that contain the word baptism. The first entry is from the children's songbook, song number 100 about baptism. The next is the word baptism within gospel topics, and so on down the list. If I wanted to, I can tap one of those items and it will open that feature and show the material behind that reference. You can see across the top there were 285 references in the Gospel Library. The next tab over is the Scriptures, and it shows 167 references to baptism in the Scriptures. Below that shows the various books of Scriptures and how many references are in each of those books. The next tab over is the General Conference, and it shows 51 references to the word baptism in the General Conference talks that are on my mobile device. I can navigate to one of those by tapping on it, and it opens up that reference to baptism within that conference talk. When I'm done, I'll tap the word done at the bottom right corner of the screen. It takes me to the talk itself. The next icon is the pages or screens feature within the Gospel Library. This is an extremely useful feature, and it's a good idea to become versed in how to use it. I'm going to tap this icon, which looks like two squares overlapping each other. This brings me to the Screens page. The Gospel Library app allows you to have multiple screens saved so that you can quickly jump from one area of the Gospel Library to other areas without navigating all the way back to the start. For example, I have a screen option here that says Library. If I tap that, it will take me back to the main library page. I'm going to go back into the Screens option by tapping the screen icon at the bottom right corner of the screen. Now I want to add a new screen. So I'm going to tap the blue plus button in the bottom right corner, and it opens a new screen for me. Now in this case, I want to have this screen be a screen just for the Book of Mormon. So I'm going to tap the Scriptures category, and then I'm going to tap on the Book of Mormon. This has taken me to the list of books within the Book of Mormon. If I go back to my Screens icon at the bottom, you can see that a new screen has been added, Book of Mormon. Why is this useful? In our classes and in our study, sometimes we'll be asked, can you read this verse out of the Book of Mormon? There'd be two ways of getting there. One is to go all the way back to the library and then navigate back into the Book of Mormon. Or, if I've saved the Book of Mormon as one of my screens here, I can just tap on that screen and it'll take me straight to the Book of Mormon. I'm going to go back into the screen section now and create another screen for another book of Scripture. I tap on the plus sign in the bottom right corner. I go into the Scriptures category, and I'm going to tap on New Testament. This opens up the books of the New Testament as a new screen. I'm going to tap the Screens icon yet again on the bottom right corner. And now you can see I have a new screen just for the New Testament. Let's do yet another screen. One of the common activities we do is sing in our sacrament meetings and other meetings from the hymns of the church. So I'm going to tap on the music category for this screen that I'm making. Here I have the hymn book. Now I'm looking at a list of all the hymns. If I tap back on the screens page, again, by tapping on the screens icon on the bottom, now I have another screen just for hymns. So when it's time to sing a hymn in sacrament meeting, I can go to the screens icon, I can tap on the hymn screen, and now I'm looking at all of my hymns. I'm going to create another screen, one more screen. I'll tap on the blue screen plus icon, and in this case, I'm going to go to the handbooks area, tap on handbooks and callings, and the general handbook in the top left corner of the screen. Now I'm looking at the table of contents for the general handbook. Again, we'll have another video on how to use the general handbook within the Gospel Library. If I go back to my screens icon and tap it, now I have another screen for the general handbook. I'll do one more just for another example. I'm going to tap the plus button, and I'd like to have a screen for general conference talks. So I'm going to tap on the general conference category toward the top right. It opens the general conferences going back many years. I want to, in this case, have a screen for the October 2020 General Conference. As you can see, that conference icon is kind of grayed out. That means the content hasn't been loaded yet onto my mobile device. So I'm going to tap it, and that will load the conference data down onto my phone. Now if I go into that conference, now I'm looking at the list of all the conference talks from the October 2020 conference. Again, if I go back to my screens area, I can see that I've created a new screen for General Conference October 2020. So in my priesthood and Relief Society meetings or my youth meetings, if during the lesson I'm asked, can you read a scripture out of the New Testament? Well, I can tap on the screens icon. I have a page for the New Testament. I tap it. Now I've jumped into the New Testament. That makes it easy to go in between areas of content. Time to sing a song? Well, I tap on the hymns page, and now I'm looking at a list of all of the hymns. So that's the beauty and the helpfulness of the screens icon. Let's now take a look at the last icon on the bottom of the screen, the bookmark icon. It looks like a little ribbon hanging down. We use the bookmark to remember where we were in reading a particular book of scriptures or other material within the Gospel Library. We can then return to that bookmark to pick up where we left off. So in our example, let's go to the scriptures. I'm going to tap on my screens icon and go to the Book of Mormon. I want to go to 2 Nephi chapter 2 as an example. And if I were reading through this and I thought, I'd like to leave a bookmark on 2 Nephi chapter 2, verse 3. I tap the bookmark icon in the bottom right corner. It brings me to this screen. I tap a plus mark in the blue circle in the bottom right corner, and it adds a little blue bookmark on verse 3 in 2 Nephi chapter 2. If I then go back to my bookmark icon on the bottom right, we can see that it's added a bookmark for 2 Nephi chapter 2, verse 3. Later on, when I'm reading and I'd like to return to where I left off, I can reference this bookmark. Let's do one more example. I'm going to tap the cancel button here. And I'm going to return to the library and go into General Conference. I tap the General Conference category, and I'm going to go into the October 2020 conference, into the talk by Elder Rasband, and let's say that I wanted to remember a particular paragraph in his talk. I tap on the bookmarks icon, I tap the plus sign in the bottom right corner, and it puts a bookmark on the left side for where I was reading. Later on, if I want to return, let's say I'm back at the library, and I say, I'd like to go back to Elder Rasband's talk. I tap the bookmark icon in the bottom right corner, and there's his talk, one of the bookmarks. I tap it, and now I'm where I left off. This is a useful tool as we teach lessons or we're reading through things. We want to remember something that was meaningful to us. We can save it here in the bookmarks feature. Another way of navigating within the Gospel Library is to use the levels or hierarchy tool. All of the information in the Gospel Library is organized in this format. For example, let's say that we go into the Scriptures category and into the Old Testament and into the book of Exodus and then to chapter 20, where we could read about the Ten Commandments. At the top of every screen in the Gospel Library is the hierarchy or levels information. In this case, the chapter number is displayed Exodus 20. I'm going to tap that. When I tap it, the levels of the hierarchy in the Gospel Library are displayed. In this example, Exodus chapter 20 is part of the book of Exodus. That, in turn, is part of the Old Testament, which is part of the Scriptures category, which in turn is part of the library. By tapping on this and displaying the levels, I can then jump to another part of the library quickly. For example, let's say I wanted to look at another book in the Old Testament. I could tap on the Old Testament level, and it displays the books of the Old Testament. I could then go into the book of the Old Testament that I'm interested in and read that information. If I tap back on the levels of the hierarchy, you can now see that that hierarchy is depicted from Judges chapter 7 all the way up to the hierarchy level. So this is a way to, again, navigate from one part of the Gospel Library to another. Yet another way of navigating within the application is to use the back arrow button shown on most screens in the top left corner. It looks like a less than button. When I move through the Gospel Library app, this button appears on every screen, and as I find myself into material in the Gospel app, if I want to back up to the prior screen I was on, I can press that back arrow button. And it's like a trail of breadcrumbs that leads me back through the sequence of screens and whatever I have been on. Let's do one final review of the methods for navigating within the Gospel Library app. There is the search feature, which allows us to search through content in the app. There is the screens feature, which allows us to create screens for important areas of information for us, such as a book of scripture or the hymns or the handbook of instructions, and allows us to quickly jump to that topic. The bookmark feature allows us to create a bookmark next to information that we've been reading or that we want to remember or bring up quickly. Another method for navigating that we reviewed is the hierarchy. So for example, I tap on the top of the screen and I can see the levels of information within the Gospel Library app, and I can jump to that level of information, for example, from the Book of Abraham to the Scripture page. Finally, as we discussed, is the left arrow button, which is a breadcrumbs type of navigation that takes me back to the previous screens that I've been on. This concludes this video on navigating within the Gospel Library app.